This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey y'all, I'm Molly.
Hi, I'm Pam.
And welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. If you haven't already, we would love it if you would please like and subscribe. And we'd love to hear from you. We've been seeing a lot of great comments from people all over the country, catching up on some of our what the feezy cases, because they pop up everywhere, not just here on our beautiful Gulf Coast.
No, everywhere.
It's absolutely true. Well, today we're talking about an episode that's called Serial Killer Nurse Poisoned Patients at VA Hospital to Impress Crush. What's this, you say?
Yeah.
Well, we have yet another serial killer nurse. I don't know if you caught one of our other episodes called The Bad Nurse, which of course was a take on The Good Nurse, talking about the Charlie Cullen case, the nurse there, and how his friend, basically, police tapped into another good nurse to help catch him. Well, there was unfortunately no one to work with police in this particular episode, but it didn't stop them from finding their culprit. And this woman we're talking about, her name is Kristen Gilbert. She was a nurse in Massachusetts, basically associated with an unusual number of fatalities that occurred at the Northampton Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Massachusetts between 1995 and 1996. Nurses that worked with her, they thought it was kind of suspicious that so much epinephrine, and our pharmacist here,
Right.
our resident pharmacist in Pam, is going to explain a little bit more about all of that. But some of the nurses who worked with her even dubbed her the Angel of Death. So we're going to break down exactly what she did, because she was targeting veterans, y'all. I mean, it's bad enough to target people in a hospital.
Right.
They're patients. They're at their most vulnerable. They're counting on people to help them. And here she is, a trained medical professional who's supposed to do no harm. And in fact, she was doing the exact opposite, because she had a big old crush on the security guard. And I guess she liked it. They could get together, if you will, anytime there was an emergency, somebody was coding. So I guess she tried to move the process along by causing some coding.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, she caused most of it. You know how, like in college, there's the BMOC, big man on campus. Well, she liked being the BLOC, the big lady on campus. And she kind of had all this weirdness, and I don't know any other word for it, weirdness when she was young, because she's from Falls River, Massachusetts, and she'd be the first to tell people, hey, I'm related to Lizzie Borden.
That is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, my
I'm
dad
proud
is
of it.
from Springfield, Massachusetts, where I think basketball was kind of semi-invented.
Right.
And I'll be like, hey, my dad's from Springfield, Mass. I think basketball was invented at the YMCA there, where they hung out a lot. Well, before he was born, I'd like to add. But I mean, if I was related to Lizzie Borden, I would never mention that to people.
No. And Lizzie Borden, just for people that don't know, it's a while back. She's the one that took an axe, and there's a little poem that kids used to sing. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mama 40 whacks. And she gave her daddy that too. Anyway, she was exonerated of it, or
Found not guilty, yeah.
Right. So anyway, it was weird. Lizzie Borden did weird stuff in her childhood. But we got Kristen here, who's pretty smart, but she's just got this big old ego, and that she just couldn't stand to be told what to do. Well, when she...
That reminds me of Judy Buono.
Oh, yeah. No, that is exactly right. When I was reading this, that's what I thought. And you know how my mind goes to, it's like the best divine gift God's ever given me is a wonderful, godly mother.
Yes.
And I feel like sometimes when people don't have a good mother, and it's not all the time, maybe don't have a good dad or whatever, they're not starting out like the rest of us did. There's no excuse. But, she didn't think about anything or anybody else. Her daddy was an engineer, and her mom was a stay-at-home mom and kind of a teacher too, a little bit teaching. And they moved when she was 12. Well, she didn't like that. So she just caused all kind of hell.
Wow.
But she was good in school. She was in the math club. She graduated a year and a half early. So she's at 16 years old.
Smart and willful.
Right, definitely. So 16 years old, getting out there, and she wanted to be a nurse. We have to think about like the time of this. We got a little monster being made right here.
Because she's 58 years old now. She was born in what, 67, you said?
Right, 67. And this is a time during when Madonna's song, like a prayer, was a Pepsi type of commercial. Tiananmen Square, Lady Di was on the scene and stuff like that. So that's all real familiar to us. You know, that's in...
Right. I was a young buck back then.
Right. You're a baby.
A young doe, I guess I should say.
Yeah, little Bambi.
Little Bambi.
Yeah, that was you. Well, I was like a full-grown, let me get out of college girl. I mean, get out of high school to go to
You
college.
were a young woman. I was a youngish, on my way to being a woman, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, little baby. So anyway, all that was going on, and it was during that time. But she basically, even like in high school, she'd do things to people. She would constantly say, I'm going to kill myself, or, you know, bluff, and she's violent. And at one point...
Anything to get her way is what it sounds like.
And to just make people nervous and keep people on ice. And I that kind of behavior, you know, we see it, and sometimes we don't push back because it's easier just to walk on eggshells.
You know, we were talking about that the other day, whether it's just people in your life that you work with, acquaintances, coworkers, just somebody you might see at the store. Sometimes when people are acting a fool, if you will, sometimes it's easier just to say, hey, go ahead and whirly dervish yourself right on out of here. I don't feel like messing with this. But sometimes if you don't put your foot down, they'll just keep up. And you have to pick and choose your battles, I guess. But it sounds like, somebody who's crazy like that, you kind of want to give them a wide berth.
Right. Or
and then it empowers them.
Right. It's like, or they need discipline. You know, a parent has to say, that's not acceptable. You're not going to act like that. Because this lady that we've got right here that's done all this stuff, she was doing this all along. When she basically went to turn her test in one day, she saw that her boyfriend had turned his test in. And I don't think she was proud of how she did, but she went and put her test on top of his test, but pulled his out so it's not there anymore, took it home and burned it.
That's unbelievable. Why? She just didn't want him to do well?
No, she has to always be the savior. And that's what I think's going on here. She's got that savior complex like a lot of people have in medicine. Because they do such wonderful things. When you save somebody, it's wonderful. You save their life. So
you're happy for them. You're happy for yourself that you're able to be a part of that if your intentions are good.
Right. So the savior complex is I save everybody. I make your decisions. I make things right for you. You need me. But typically with the savior complex, the person is uber compassionate and empathetic.
Maybe overgiving.
Yeah, right. And it's at their detriment. Well, her savior complex or messiah complex.
Giving at their detriment.
Right, exactly. And she will do that. So she would loosen the lug nuts on some of her boyfriend's cars. She would call,
What?
spark plugs.
Who thinks of things like that?
Somebody that's this way. We don't think like this, but there are people, this is a clear path to how psychopathy, people
it's almost
think
like a
that.
Munchausen type disorder,
Right.
you know, where you hurt your child to get attention when they're sick.
And that's what that was her drug of choice, attention. She just wanted attention. Didn't care how she got it. Also, she would call and do heavy breathing, like obscene phone calls, like people did back in the day. I'm like, you're going to call somebody and they're going to like it, you know, you get the right number, wrong
so
number.
true. Now, folks, those of y'all who did not grow up with cell phones,
Right.
you know, when it was landlines, that was a thing back in the day. Like, I mean, it was when you're in middle school, like I was back then, it was fun to like have a sleepover and be like, ooh, let's call so-and-so. You know what I mean? And then you ring them up and then their parents are like, stop calling or whatever.
Yeah. And you didn't know who it was because you couldn't, or like back in the day.
No caller ID.
When I was little, somebody would call our house and it was something my dad got on the phone and basically said some things that polite people can't ever say in the world, but he didn't call anymore.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, we talked about that. But yeah, I do remember being a kid home alone a couple times and we'd get these weird calls and people would call and do that weird stuff and say terrible things. But most of the time it was random, but you don't know that because you can't tell where it's coming from and that sort of thing.
Well, she held everybody off balance, mostly boyfriends. But also she just wasn't like kind of connecting with her family or anybody unless it's on her terms. So here she is at 16 and a half, graduating early.
Super controlling already.
Already. Math club, just wonderful. When she got she took a little pre-nursing job, and she was at a facility, and she was giving a bath to a handicapped child, mentally compromised child, and she scalds him with hot bath water.
Oh.
So that's how this starts. There's not a whole lot of documentation or anything about that, but it ended up being one of the aggravating factors in her sentencing.
So it was the beginning of showing a pattern of harmful behavior, it sounds like.
It popped up, but she also knew how to cover that up. She was the nurse that brought in the baked goods and like, hey, let's go out for drinks later. I've already made reservations, and it's your birthday. Let's celebrate it. Let's do this. Basically, a one-woman sunshine committee of
Charm
her own.
and distraction.
Definitely. So she did that.
So she finally makes it out of high school and goes into college, becomes a nurse. Did she ever get married and start a family?
She did. She married a man named Glenn, and she had 2 kids. Glenn was a regular old-looking guy, just a good guy. And he had said at certain points he had felt like some of the food she had made him tasted funny.
He wasn't wrong.
No, he was not wrong. And that he also said that she had given him something, injected him with something. He passed out, but he doesn't quite remember it. That's what I'm saying. These people, this is like Corey Richins' retro type of thing.
Yes.
If somebody makes something for me and it tastes bad or tastes funny, I'm not ever eating anything. Because Judy Buonoano did that one time when I was at her house. She had made Cornish hens, and I noticed that anytime we were there, she would serve individual stuff. Well, I was like never hungry at her house, never thirsty at her house, because that is exactly how she started her diabolical going on.
That's crazy. Well, and if y'all aren't familiar with our episode on that, Judy Buonoano, of course, is known as the Black Widow in Florida, put her to death for killing a number of people, including her own son. And one husband, one boyfriend, tried to kill another boyfriend. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this story, but Pam's dad had a relationship of some sorts with her off and on for a little while. And so Pam knew her, and we did an episode on the whole case, including her personal take on Judy Buonoano as well, because she was right there on the sidelines, if you will, unfortunately, with a view to some of this horror that unfolded. And that episode is called I'll Do the Cooking. Yeah. So to Pam's point, you know, Judy used poison in a lot of her murders, if you will, as well, and attempted murders. And she also used a bomb. Good Lord. Right. Anyway, but yeah.
Everything.
So this nurse, it seems like she leaned towards the poison as well, because not only did she get busted for basically poisoning her patients with epinephrine, but she eventually got caught, like you said, poisoning her own husband, right?
Yeah, or attempting to. Well, what had happened is she saw this man, okay? Every story starts like that.
Good Lord.
she saw
Do they just have magic ones or something? Like, they're just like, this guy, that's worth throwing everything away for.
Let me end up in federal prison for a whole rest of my life.
She probably was going to end up there anyway.
Oh, yeah. Like. Oh, she was.
Anybody that's idealizing Lizzie Borden.
Oh, we got so much more on her that's going on. Well, her husband was a nice guy. He was a good guy. He was a good man. But she had told some of the people, like at her little outings with the baked goods and the let's go drinking type of thing, I want him out of here by Thanksgiving.
Oh,
you know,
she even gave a date, a deadline.
Yeah. She was like that. Here's the thing with her. I want him out of here by Thanksgiving. And so she sees the security guard that comes on. You can tell she works on ego and even her drug of choice. Isn't that interesting? Her drug of choice to get cardiac arrest going or make people die is adrenaline or epinephrine, a stimulant that is almost untraceable back in those days when we didn't have the quality review and assurance we have now. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But what she did, this is how she is. It's all me, 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 me. She's a meite. Everything's me. Everybody, not even her kids. Well, she sees this good-looking guy, and he's a security guard. Well, what happens on codes is obviously the nurse is there, the doctor's there, security has to be there. It's their rules or parameters or law or whatever. Well, what she'd do, she'd go in there, you just carry that little syringe right there in your pocket up here and go in, and she would inject a patient with the epinephrine, and they'd go into cardiac arrest. Well, she calls the code, but how wonderful. I'm already here.
Wow.
So
Go
I will
figure.
help with the code. And everybody said she was so proficient at these things. She was epic. She was good at them. She called so many of them. And so when that man came, his name was James Perrault. When he came, she said she liked seeing his muscles when he's doing CPR.
That's
and all
ridiculous.
That. It is, but I mean, this is her. I ain't making this stuff up.
Well, can't you just do it once and get the video? Then the hospital have some cameras around there?
I don't know. She didn't care who she hurt is the thing. So, and who she killed. So she's going through there. He's in the code. She's in the code. It's adrenaline. It's exciting. It's all this stuff that
she gets to
likes.
be a hero in her mind. She's showing how wonderful and smart and savior-esque she is.
Right. And she wanted everybody to know that, to see how proficient she was. Basically, she was showboating, peacocking, usually what we say of other folks. But she's peacocking and going, she was called to half of over the 350 deaths that happened there. Statistically, people say, well, maybe that's a, coincidence. People say the statistics of that are 1 in 100 million.
Wow.
So probably not.
Yeah, no kidding. And they do suspect that she killed many more people than she was actually convicted of.
Oh, yeah.
I know she was convicted of, sentenced to death for killing 4, and then I think she was found guilty of at least 1 or 2 other attempted murders.
Right, attempted, and some other stuff. While they were, finally, some of the nurses said, you know what, this don't look right. Because if you've got somebody like that in your midst and you're doing, my mom was a nurse. So I know that takes everything. I love nurses almost more than anything. But
they're fun.
They are fun.
My mom, when she was in the nursing home, I'm not going to lie, I saw a lot of nurses in the 13 years I took care of her after my dad passed. But she was in and out of rehab from injuries. Then she had a stroke, and then she was in the nursing home and blah, 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 also in assisted living. So I just had a lot of nurses in my life, and they just made my life so much better. I will tell you. I mean, I know there's, just like every profession, you have your good seeds and your bad seeds, if you will. But like, I am fortunate to say that I never really had too many bad experiences, and they are just fun as all get out and competent, of course.
And sweet people. I mean, you have to be drawn to that, to the caring professions. Most every caring profession, and teaching and medicine and what have you, those are for special people. I knew I ain't a good enough person to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. Not that pharmacists aren't good people, but I'm just like, there's so much all day long. And some of the stuff I didn't think I could do. I didn't think I could fool with the blood and all that kind of stuff. So, but I watched my mom, and actually I would watch my mom get ready for work. And I mean, she looked like an angel to me, because back then, nurses, when my mom was a nurse, they wore a white dress, white hose, white shoes, a white hat, and my mom had raven black hair. And then they either wore a blue or a white sweater that just buttoned here, almost like a little co-ed. So you knew who the nurses were, and there seemed to always be, kind, loving, sweet people. But now sometimes we don't know who's who in there. But I remember just looking and thinking, my mom's special. So that's what we think about nurses. Most all of us love nurses.
Absolutely. I certainly do. And I know that some of these nurses that worked with Kristen certainly felt suspicious of her.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I think started to get people's attention.
Right.
She was always around when these people began to code. So you do expect people who are in a hospital setting to take care of you. And on that note, before we get into the ways that she tried to impress the security guard that were horrible to other people and some of these patients, I do want to take a moment to thank Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law for being a supporter of Gulf Coast Confidential. We try to be a voice for the voiceless here on Gulf Coast Confidential and share the stories of victims and from their perspective. And, you need that when you're fighting somebody bigger than you are. And that's exactly what personal injury attorneys like Joe Zarzar do. And in fact, he is representing a widow right now, Beverly Bryan. Her husband died on the operating table at a hospital in the Destin area after he was just going to go in to have his spleen removed. And Dr. Thomas Chiknowski is accused of accidentally removing this man's liver and causing him to die. So this is an ongoing case that Joe Zarzar is handling on behalf of the widow, Beverly Bryant. It has been traumatic for that family. You can imagine they never gave her, according to the medical paperwork that we've seen, they were not honest with her at the beginning about exactly what happened in there. So much like the average person, if you're not a trained medical professional, you expect and believe and trust the facts that you're being told by your medical care provider. So again, I bring that up just to say, if you find yourself in a position where you've been hurt through no fault of your own or a loved one has, and you're looking for answers and you feel like you're not getting them, then you need somebody to be that person and that voice for you. And we thank Zarzar Law for doing that for the people that he represents and also for being a supporter of Gulf Coast Confidential. So along those lines, moving back into Kristen's story. Okay. So she's been causing these codes because she wants to see the muscles of her hot security guard boyfriend. I use the word hot loosely. I've not seen him. But I assume that she apparently got the hots for him.
Yeah, well, her thinking's not so great anyway.
No, and it was apparently worth killing people. And epinephrine was her choice of drug because at that time it was hard to trace.
Right. Well, and it's something you use in a code. It's what you use to stimulate the heart back. And so you're not going, oh, well, there's epinephrine there. It's a code. It should be there. So, I mean, she's brilliant that way, but she's just diabolical other ways. So at a certain amount of time, there were 3 nurses, and they were like, you know what? They're looking, and they had jokingly called her the angel of death, which doesn't seem like a joke to me or anything fun or a pun or anything.
Goes to show they weren't far off the mark.
No, they weren't. And speaking the truth. And so they noticed we're having so many cardiovascular events, you know, and deaths. And then our supply of epinephrine is way, way, way low, you know. And back then, they didn't have all the metrics and the inventory and stuff like we have now. Now they can sit at a desk and go, I need 3 bottles of epinephrine. They can punch it in, take it from the pharmacy, and it comes there. They don't have to know on hand. The pharmacist does. And that's my question. Why didn't somebody in the pharmacy go, why is all this going towards C? Right. You know, but nobody asked questions. That's exactly how Charlie Cullen was able to do that. People, doing your job and staying in your lane is one thing, but being a dum-dum is another, or not thinking about the whole patient. We're all there to serve the patient first and care for the patient first, regardless. So 3 of them were like, this is too much. So they get going on that, and an investigation ensues. Well, guess what old girl does during the investigation?
Does she quit?
She kind of makes herself scarce, but she calls in a bomb threat.
Oh, wow.
To the
Yet
federal hospital.
Distraction. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
So they start investigating, and everybody's like, what the actual feezy, is going on here?
A bomb threat.
Yeah.
So they realized she was the one that called it in eventually?
Right. And when they're investigating, they go to the house there, and they speak to the husband, and he's like, yeah. And Glenn told all the stuff.
Sorry, I'm a little under the weather.
Yeah.
My wife made some soup last night. I'm just not the same.
Yeah, it's like, go look in the pantry. Well, they said, can we look around? And they looked around, so I brought this cream of chicken soup right here. They went in the pantry, and they said, what is this handbook of poison doing in here?
What?
Yeah, that's where Corey Richards put her stuff, because that's the pantry there. So they found that, and basically
right next to the recipe book.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Or in my case,
I have newt.
Yeah, she's crazy. But then she checks herself into various and sundry
rehab sort?
Psych hospitals.
Okay. So
and
she's Baker acting herself.
Right, 7 times. She did it 7 times. She'd stay anywhere from a day to 10. So anyway, it's like she's planning a vacation to Turks and Caicos, because she just goes and does these things.
That's so interesting because, without naming names, there are people that I know their stories very well who have allegedly tried multiple suicide attempts, and it always came at points in their life when they wanted their way, when they wanted X, Y, and Z to happen, and they weren't having X, Y, and Z happen. So the next thing you know, I'll just eat a bunch of pills and put myself in the hospital. And then what do they want? First thing when they wake up, more pills, whatever else the case may be. But yeah, that does seem to be a control tactic on her part.
Right. She did, and she's so random and reckless and just rough and everything. So, and going back just a little bit, she wanted to always run the daggum whole floor. She's not the charge nurse. You're a nurse. Just do your job. Quit killing people and do your job, But she couldn't do that because she has to be the star. There are some people that have to be the star. regardless.
Center of attention.
Right. So she had asked her boss there, because one of these guys, this guy here, Kenneth Cutting, he was one of the people that she killed. He was having a bad day, obviously. And she asked her boss, well, if Kenneth dies, can I go home early? And Kenneth dies, and she goes home early.
Wow, the selfishness. That is pathological.
Right. So she wanted people to think, I'm just a little dynamo. Apparently, I need to watch this man over here do these, this CPR, this CPR, because it's like, is it foreplay to this crazy? You know,
that's disgusting.
It is, but that's how she is. So basically, James had said, Kristen confessed to me during some pillow talk.
Well, that's so funny because before you said that, that's exactly what I was picturing. I'm like, okay, well, if they're doing this over and over again and they actually have started an affair, I'm sure he doesn't know that she's causing these deaths.
No.
But I can imagine that they're probably talking about it and reliving it. So that makes sense because she would enjoy that, especially, I mean, you know, apparently she truly is a convicted serial killer. And from what I know about serial killers, I'm not an expert, but they do have a tendency to want to relive.
Oh, yeah.
Because it gives you that rush again, that sort of. So I can imagine if she was doing it all to impress him, he was there at the moment, she's going to be like, ooh, I just liked watching your muscles ripple when you were just doing chest compression.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Weird.
Yeah, but that's what she said, and this is where we are.
Yeah.
Put that with her thinking she's a little dynamo there, and I told you, you know how I say stuff. People, the sex starts in their brain.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what they're doing. They done figured out something.
What they
in their
imagine
head.
is happening.
Yeah. And I hope they don't ever tell us, but you know.
No, no, it might involve epinephrine.
Right.
I don't know.
It might. But the thing is that he said that she confessed to him. She said, I did it. I killed those guys.
She was bragging.
And he knew that. But also...
So when did he go to the police with that information,
well, this is stuff he's telling during a trial.
Okay.
You know, he has to
So we don't
tell
really
it.
know. Yeah.
He just eventually... Because I want this guy to be a good guy. You know, he can't help it because Psycho over here set sights on her.
Right.
You know?
I agree.
And Glenn was a good guy. She even chased Glenn around with a butcher knife at the house a month after they're married. You know,
Boy, why did he stay?
I don't know. I'd be seeing how annulments work.
He's like, I'm faster than her.
That's what he felt.
He's like, whatever, I can outrun her. I can outrun her madness.
He don't know, though. He don't know.
He almost didn't.
It scared him to pieces when he realized in his pantry was a handbook of poisons.
Good gracious. So the web, if you will, is closing around this particular Black Widow.
Right.
And so what was her, even though she was not killing her husband, she did try.
She tried.
So how did she finally get busted?
Well, because she... You know, these stories that are coming out now. She took a butcher knife to me. She tried to poison 2 patients just randomly. One patient, she went and just removed the breathing tube. She didn't like that going on.
Good
And another
gracious.
time, she just had the defibrillation paddles and handed them to a less experienced person because she didn't want to fool with it. So that caused a problem. And she just abandoned patients. You put that with her behavior. And with one of these boyfriends back in the day, she said, I'm just going to eat glass.
Good
And so she had him so scared, he might have been the one with the lug nuts or the test or whatever. Because once she set her sights on somebody, that was it. So
She just wasn't going to stop till she got him.
no. So what happened, and then we go all the way back to the scalded child. You know, so we got all this going on. So in Massachusetts, they don't have the death penalty, but this all happened on federal property.
Because she was at a Veterans Administration Center, hospital, facility, medical center.
Right. And she did all this, and she phones in a bomb threat there. You know, so what she did, she basically got convicted of those 4 men there.
Yes, and let me read their names real quick, just in honor of them and their families. But Stanley Jagodowski, Henry Hudon, Kenneth Cutting, and Edward Squira. Squira, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but God love them and their families.
Yeah.
What a terrible, terrible thing to have happen. I mean, we're all going to go at some point, but you would ideally hope that it's going to happen for natural causes.
Right. Well, and they serve our country. They're in our VA hospital, and, you know, it's not like somebody's just like not giving them, you know, attentive care. It's like somebody's trying to kill them.
Finally, she gets to trial. She gets convicted of killing these 4 men, and this is in 2001. So they're considering what they're going to punish, what her punishment will be. And like you mentioned, even though Massachusetts is a state that does not carry the death penalty because it happened on federal property, there is federal law and jurisdiction to put someone to death federally, but the jury agreed not to do that.
Right.
Basically, they could have agreed to have her die by lethal injection, but they didn't want to do that for whatever reason.
Exactly. So that was on federal property, but what she did was in 2003, she's kept appeals going. And so finally in 2003, I think she effed around and found out that I better drop this appeal, because they said, if we retry you and if the death penalty can be an option again.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, it didn't completely scare her away from going back to court, because back in March of 2025, so not even a year ago, she went back before the court and she was like, hey, you got me working. You're taking my wages. You're putting a garnishment on there. I don't think you have to put as much on there as you are. I don't know what she plans to do with the money, but apparently it's going to like a $1.5 million restitution bill that she owes. And she wanted some of it, not as much, if you will, of what they were garnishing from her wages, to go to that. I don't know what she wanted it to go towards. Maybe Snickers bars or something.
Whatever, anything different than they decide. The thing is, you don't have a say-so anymore, miss. You got 4 life sentences plus 20 years. I'm not trying to be ugly, but sit the hell all the way down.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, that's kind of what the judge told her. He was like, denied. No.
And then somewhere in this fraganacle BS, she decided, when y'all make a movie about me, I want Bridget Fonda to play me. That's what she said.
Bridget Fonda, I loved her. She was so pretty. Bridget Fonda's like, blah.
She's like, no, thank you.
Wow, she really is something. So she probably is sitting there thinking, golly, it's just a matter of time before all my fans come a-calling.
Yeah. Well, this is why we're talking about it right now. She's like one of the hottest things on the internet. When you just look on, there's a lady doing the Making of a Monster, Mind of a Monster. It's got 7 parts to it.
Wow.
And it is about old girl here.
Wow. Well, it sounds like there's plenty to talk about. I mean, I appreciate you and all your research, because especially digging into some of the fun facts from her early life. Once we know what we know about somebody, it does put all those crazy things that happened early on in perspective. But at the same time, if I'm going to be out and about, if Vivian comes home from school and starts telling me about something that somebody does, I'm going to be like, well, are they going to grow up to overuse epinephrine or do something crazy and weird? But at any rate, it's interesting to learn what they do in the past, because I feel like it does sort of give you an indication of things to be aware of.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and how much healthcare and patient care and just living life has changed a lot now. That would never happen today, because we look at things and go, usually Monday through Friday, we use 15 vials of epinephrine. Why have 75 went up to the floor? Her being there on half of every code in death, and all the other nurses together don't even make up that half. That's why you have to have people that are looking over that. We can't just be like a bunch of dummies and go, you have to ask questions, you have to care. It's like if I see a prescription come in, it's the same thing over and over and over, or the husband and wife get the exact same thing. I'm like, his and her oxycodone, and they just jumping on a trampoline right before, it's just different. Now, if they're both hurting and stuff, but you have to have some discernment, and you have an obligation to think for yourself and go, wow, that's not right. That's what we do every time we fill a prescription. People are like, what do y'all do, back there? You don't see a lot of what we do. We look at it and go, is this right for this person? Let me check their profile. How about allergies? Would I give that to my mother or dad or whomever? It's that kind of thing. Nobody was asking questions, and I'm not going to blame the nurses or anything. VAs are typically understaffed.
Absolutely.
And when we see someone that's a dynamo, we say, yay, 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 and we don't think anything else about it.
Yeah, you're right, though. But if you see something, say something, do something.
That's right.
And thankfully, she did work with people that did say something, too.
Definitely. So it wouldn't happen today. I know it wouldn't happen today.
Well, Pam, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we thank you so much for joining us. That is it for Serial Killer Nurse Poisoned Patients at VA Hospital to Impress Crush. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can listen to more episodes of Gulf Coast Confidential on our YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Just don't forget to like and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you next time, y'all. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.